Hi everybody, welcome to Caketastic Cakes. It's Jen, and if you can tell in this quick little excerpt here, I am going to be showing you how to make a PlayStation 4 controller out of gum paste. And if you see me use any supplies or tools that you can use, take a look at the description below. It has a link that should be able to help you out. And get ready for the entire tutorial now. Alright, I'm going to be starting with some black gum paste, as I've already mentioned. You could use fondant here. If you did, you would I should say, add some Tylose powder or CMC powder to it to help stiffen it up. But I'm just sticking with gum paste because that's my jam, that's how I roll, and here I go. I have my oval there that's still really thick. I flattened the one end on the top, as you can see, and I took a nice squared off chunk out of the middle and the bottom. I'm just going to press those sharp tips that were created to round off the bottom. And this is going to become the handles, the beginning of my Joy controller. My Joy-Con is what I wanted to say. I'm using a smaller square there, and I'm pressing into the top in the center while leaving two little mounds on either side. Again, this is just fine-tuning the overall shape of our controller here. Now that the overall shape is good, I'm going to start making the little controllers themselves. So as you can see, I made a bigger circle. It was a little too big, so I created a smaller one. Using just some more gum paste, I'm going to put it on either side, and those are going to become the directional pads, or I think they are. Forgive me if I'm wrong. No, they're not. Yeah, they're just the controllers. Those two smaller circles there. I think are going to be the directional ones. Again, sorry, I don't have a PlayStation. My kids have Xboxes, so I'm out of the loop on this one. So forgive me. Give me some slack here. I know people take this very seriously. All right, so what I did was I hollowed out those two circles just a little bit so I have a bit of a ring around the edge. It did make it a little bit bigger, and that's fine. When I place them on the remote, as you can see, or the controller, they are going to stick out a little bit past the bottom. Two smaller circles, or more like balls there, that I pressed down and kind of hollowed just a little bit, fit nicely inside, and there you go. Now those two bigger circles that I made before are going to go diagonal with each one and kind of touch the smaller circles. I'm using the back side of my knife to create some impressions. Creating this little impression of a rectangular shape. Again, I don't know this system. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a speaker. I don't know if it's a little vibrator thing, because I think this is a DualShock system or type of controller. Not sure. But that's what I did. I'm using my large pointed veining tool to create the little breathing holes or whatever they are. And then I'm using my little fine veining tool to create the very fine little hold grid that goes into that rectangular panel at the top. And when you do this, make them as small and close together and perfectly lined up as you can, because that top one is very lined up. The bottom one, you have 5 dots, then 4 dots, then 3 dots, and they stagger in between each other. I'm using some very light blue gum paste that I rolled really thin between my fingers to lay down in those side grooves there, because I guess it lights up. And now I'm going to add the little again, wrong system, sorry. I'm going to add the shapes now. There we go, the shapes. I put 4 little balls in. I used a little bit of water to anchor them in place. Press them down so they're nice and flat. You don't want any little hollows in these. And on the other side, you're going to cut a square into 4 little cubes. You're going to take each of those cubes and just take a little nip off of one side to create a little bit of an arrow, or imagine you're making little houses out of it, just like that. So you got nice little, kindergarten type houses. Round off those points a little bit and then place them in the other circles so they kind of come together. All their little points point at each other, but just don't touch. And when you have them placed properly and you're happy with it, start anchoring it down with a little bit of water. So I didn't anchor anything down until I was satisfied with the placement. And you got to really be careful with those little house button shapes and the circles, because you want them as perfectly, up and down and left and right as possible. All right, now in the center between the two bottom ones, I'm putting a little dome. Try to leave it domed. Don't, make it too flat. That's where the little PlayStation logo is going to go. I've cut out 2 little circles for the top. Again, don't know the system. Obviously, they're controls for something. Probably shooting or picking up or dropping. I'm not sure. But yes, one on each side on the top, on those little lumps that we left raised on the sides. All right, now I'm going to try to create the grip pattern that is at the bottom of each handle. I have here just a little kitchen sieve that I use for coffee sometimes, and I'm trying to create that nice fine net mesh pattern, and it actually worked really well. It just took some doing, that's all. So if you have something like that, great, use it, because it really does create the effect. It's hard to say, I know. So I'm sorry about that, but just trust me, it's there, and in your imagination, imagine it like as amazingly perfect as possible. That would be accurate. That is exactly what it looks like. So I created that mesh pattern on a very, very, very thin piece of gum paste that I rolled out, and then carefully lay it over at an angle, as you can see, over the bottom part of the handle for each side. I added water to it, as you can see, and I'm cutting off the extra. As you cut it off, you don't have to, but I'm trying to fold it under to make it as smoothed off and rounded off as possible. Now, back to the top of the remote, there's a couple little switches like shake and options or something like that. So they're little tic-tac shapes that I press on either side. Now we're getting to the shapes themselves. This is I know it looks kind of blue. It's actually like a very light teal color. And I'm going to roll it as thin as possible on my surface and then cut a very, very skinny little strip. No matter what I do, it's going to be too thick. But do the best you can. I did the best I could, and it came out okay. So yes, one long piece, and then shape it into your triangle on the top. When you do it, I put a little bit of water down on top of that button, I'm going to call it, that I made, and that helps it stick to it so you can kind of work with it. I'm using my X-Acto knife to trim off the extra and to reshape it as best you can. So as you can see, I've made the red circle, I made the light blue X, I made I'm going to call it pink square, and I know the triangle is missing. I had taken it off because I didn't like it, and so I put it back on. I tried again. Tried to make it a little straighter, a little thinner, but yeah, there you go. All right, now I'm using a black edible food coloring marker to draw the little directional triangles next to the little house-shaped buttons in order to indicate, where they go. There, if you look at the remote, the black remote or the controller, you'll see those little marks on there that I'm talking about. I'm using some white food coloring here and a toothpick to try, being the strong word, make the PlayStation logo on that raised button. And once everything dried for like a day or two, I sprayed the whole darn thing with some edible gloss spray to make it more like a shiny plastic remote, and it kind of worked. So there you go. This is how I made my PlayStation 4 remote controller. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. I've got a lot of other videos out there, so take a look. And as always, thank you for watching Caketastic Cakes.